This is Aristides Garcia. He's the head of our fermentation, all of Perdomo cigars. And Aristides just celebrated his 75th year in the cigar industry. And what's so special about it is Aristides not only knew my father before I knew him, he worked with my father in Cuba and worked with my father prior to my father passing away in 2003 here in Nicaragua. He's been a great asset to us with his experience. So I'm going to ask Aristides two questions. First question is, when the tobacco comes from the curing barn, what's the next process? And the second question is how long does the initial sweat in the first fermentation period last before we start fermenting this tobacco for several years prior to being made a Perdomo cigar? Aristides, una pregunta. El tabaco, cuando viene de la casa de tabaco, ¿qué hacemos?
Bueno, cuando nosotros recibimos el tabaco, que ya viene del acopio, que se sacó el tabaco, lo recibimos aquí. La primera cosa es pesarlo y hacer los pilones como están aquí.
So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this tobacco from the curing barns or the farms and we're going to weigh them. And everyone is sorted and selected and tied by a color string. If you look here, you'll see all these are in blue because these are third priming visos from the Esteli Valley where we just came from. After we weigh that tobacco, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make these fermentation piles you see here. And basically, these fermentation piles are no different than a compost. Under weight, they ferment naturally under pressure. The next question I'm going to ask him is, how long do we do this initial sweat before it goes into fermentation? Que la otra pregunta es, por más o menos cuánto tiempo se mantiene este tabaco por la primera fermentación.
Bueno, como que es la fermentación preliminar que él recibe con la humedad que trae del acopio, esto demora alrededor de 3 o 4 meses para que reseque la humedad que trae y poderle dar agua.
The first initial sweat is really what we call a preliminary fermentation period. And what we're going to do is when we build this fermentation pile or pilon, what we're going to do is these are going to average weight is going to be between 3,500 and 4,000 pounds. And what we're going to do is we're going to monitor this every day, and through pressure, we're going to build these heats up to about 100 to 102 degrees Fahrenheit. What we're trying to do is slowly give it its initial fermentation so it can be devoid of all the fluids that came from the actual curing barn. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these tobaccos and thoroughly dry them out so they have a nice even color. And the average time takes about 3 to 4 months for its preliminary fermentation. After that preliminary fermentation, it's going to be re-wet again with moisture and humidity, and then it's going to go into fermentation for several years prior to being made a Perdomo cigar. So I'm going to show you the color of this tobacco. Vamos a abrir una hoja ahí para enseñarle a ellos el tabaco. And if you look, you'll see that these tobaccos have this beautiful chocolate brown color, and you'll see how elastic this tobacco is. And we want this elasticity, and what we do is eventually after this tobacco sits here in its first fermentation pile for 4 months, it'll dry out naturally and all the fluids will be released. After that, now we're going to go into some serious fermentation. This is a preliminary, but you see what a great job our guys did on the farms with this tobacco. So we're going to go back and show you how we wet this tobacco after the tobacco has gotten its initial sweat and completed. So we're going to go back here. We're going to go back here and we'll show you.